Alex Kurtzman strikes again with another memorable Star Trek production that adds fuel to a fire of hatred of new Trek. If I take lessons I've learned from old Trek, I must be able to move on and forgive as we all have the opportunity to express oneself. Well, that's why I'm here. This is the worst thing that has happened to cinema, let alone Star Trek. Let's talk about where the idea of Section 31 came from. Section 31, or 31 for short, was introduced to us all in an episode of DS9 called Inquisition, which aired on April 7th, 1998. 31 is a secret organization that worked outside of Starfleet's knowledge or consent.
Starfleet Command doesn't acknowledge its existence, but they don't deny it either. They simply said they'd look into it and get back to me.
When?
They didn't say.
That sounds like a cover-up to me.
It's not that simple, Chief. There is no building, no room like this in the real world. Section 31 has no headquarters. These files, they exist only in the minds of a very select group of people. And I happen to be one of them.
So, when looking at New Trek from the Alex Kurtzman era, it's in direct contradiction to Deep Space Nine. Because everyone in Discovery and Strange New Worlds seemed to know of 31's existence as if it was common knowledge.
Empty space in a penal colony that was abandoned over 100 years ago.
It's not abandoned. That's Section 31 headquarters.
Both of these shows take place 111 years prior to the events of Deep Space Nine on the timeline. So this comes across as yet again another misstep in a long line of thoughtlessness, carelessness, and anger-evoking decisions made by Alex Kurtzman and other showrunners. A blatant disregard of fans, canon, and the work that came before it.
And you don't have to have watched the other 58 years of Star Trek to be able to watch this. You can hop in from the get-go and just enjoy the movie.
The movie Section 31 does not belong in the Star Trek universe. It comes across as yet another failed Star Wars production. Anyone that would walk into a room seeing this show on the TV at a glance would not recognize it as Star Trek. The tone, the look, the feel is not Star Trek. Yes, in the movie they establish it taking place outside of Federation space. Section 31 is not Starfleet, blah, 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 blah. But if you're going to make a movie about Star Trek, it needs to be about Star Trek. But I guess that's the point, because this movie is not for Star Trek fans. This is a failed attempt to bring in those Star Wars, Suicide Squad, and Marvel fans to subscribe to Paramount Plus. Where did the idea even come from to make this movie? I mean, season 1 and season 2 of Discovery did not have great ratings. Season 1, according to the users on Rotten Tomatoes, was like a 48%, and then in season 2 it dropped to 38%. Both seasons heavily featured Section 31. Viewers were not happy with New Trek, and instead of acknowledging this, Alex Kurtzman decided to double down on this universe he had created. The pandemic could have saved us all from this movie, but Alex just couldn't let it go. Michelle Yeoh, who had played Philippa Georgiou in Discovery, won an Oscar, and I think this gave Alex just enough to get this production approved in 2024. I mean, with almost 5 years of sitting on the shelf and in production, they still couldn't deliver a successful project. Instead of writing a movie, they took their bad ideas from their 10-episode show and made this. Everything was rushed and did not seem to be thought out at all. Instead, we are shown the end of a Hunger Games style like contest that for the final act she must murder her family. Remember, she is the character you're supposed to cheer for. Also, this leads me to believe that no one will challenge her for the throne until she dies. Yet, this is in direct contradiction to the movie itself and Discovery. In Discovery, she was under constant threat of this happening. If these games existed, why would anyone try to kill her to take her spot so some teenager can replace her after the Hunger Games? Also, why does she need the weapon she created in the movie in the first place? If she stays Emperor until another Hunger Games takes place or when she dies of old age, See how this doesn't make any sense? I cannot say this enough as Section 31 was an insult to everything Star Trek stands for. Each show prior to the Kurtzman era had characters in which we could look up to. How many people have gone into their respective fields being inspired by Star Trek? There's not one character from this movie that would inspire anyone to be anything. The movie's main character is literally Space Hitler. She was a leader of the Terran Empire, which is from the Mirror Universe, establishing it to be the opposite of the Prime Universe. Her being the Mirror Universe's emperor, she had to complete conquest after conquest that led to the death and destruction of billions. She didn't just attack small groups or minorities, but entire worlds just because they did not follow the Terran way of life. Does this sound familiar? So why is the showrunners asking us to like this person?
It's a redemption story. It's about second chances, and it's an action movie.
Star Trek has always attempted to take the high road in giving characters second chances. Even Kirk gave Christopher Lloyd a second chance after killing his son, but he was the antagonist. The main characters of Star Trek have almost always chose to do the right thing. But according to the showrunners of today, the antagonist gets the lead of their own film. I am 100% behind the idea of a Star Trek production like Section 31, but let it be like the one described in DS9.
So, why don't you tell me who you are? Who you work for?
I think it's obvious. Same people you work for, the Federation. Let's just say I belong to another branch of Starfleet intelligence. Our official designation is Section 31.
Never heard of it.
We keep a low profile. Works out better that way for all concerned.
And what does Section 31 do? Apart from kidnapping Starfleet officers.
We search out and identify potential dangers to the Federation.
And once identified,
We deal with them.
how?
Quietly.
I love to see all the actions and decisions taken by 31 to assassinate Chancellor Gorkon, the attempted militarization of Earth right before the Dominion War, the First Cardassian War, the Temporal Wars, or even the establishment of how 31 came to being. Each one does not have to be its own show, but a miniseries. This would allow them to stick with canon and express a different angle from those that we've already witnessed. It would have to be done carefully, but I believe it could be done with the right people in place.